Welcome to Simply Debbie Sue's Southern Whispers. Step into a world where front porches hold secrets, faith carries folks through the hardest days, and the mountains whisper stories only the heart can hear. I invite you into tender moments, gentle humor, and the kind of Southern warmth that feels just like home. Hi, friends. Welcome into another Simply Debbie Sue's Southern Whispers. So let's get into the introduction of this week's story. Some lessons don't come from books or sermons. They come from the quiet wisdom of someone who's lived long enough to know what truly matters. In the South, where Sunday mornings smell like biscuits and starch, and where a good pair of church shoes can feel like a ticket to belonging, it's easy to forget that worth isn't something we wear. Today's Southern Whisper is about a boy, his granddaddy, and a pair of shiny shoes that taught a deeper truth. This week's story is called The Sunday Shoes. 8-year-old Sawyer Puckett had never wanted anything as badly as he wanted the black patent leather shoes in Harper's General Store window. They sat on a little wooden stand like royalty, catching the sunlight and throwing it back in bright, perfect gleams. Sawyer imagined himself walking into church wearing them, chin high, shoulders back, looking like somebody important. His own shoes were hand-me-downs from his cousin, scuffed at the toes and worn thin at the heel. They squeaked when he walked, and Sawyer was convinced the whole congregation could hear them echoing off the sanctuary walls. One Saturday afternoon, while Granddaddy was whittling on the porch, Sawyer blurted out, "Granddaddy, I want them shiny shoes at Harper's, the real fancy ones." Granddaddy didn't look up. "Shoes, huh? What's wrong with the ones you got?" "They're old," Sawyer said, "and everybody at church has nicer ones. I want to look important." Granddaddy paused his carving and raised an eyebrow. "Important to who?" Sawyer opened his mouth, then closed it. He wasn't sure. Granddaddy nodded like he already knew. "Tell you what, tomorrow morning you and me, we'll take a walk before church. Wear your old shoes." Sawyer sighed, but agreed. The next morning, the sun was just stretching out over the ridge when Granddaddy tapped on Sawyer's door. "Up and at 'em, boy. Time to walk." Sawyer slipped on his squeaky shoes and followed Granddaddy down the dirt road. Dew clung to the grass, and the air smelled like wet earth and pine. They passed the miller's place, a sagging house with peeling paint and a porch that leaned like it was tired of standing. On the steps sat Junie Miller, a little girl from Sawyer's school. She hugged her knees to her chest, barefoot, her toes dusty. "Morning, Miss Junie," Granddaddy said gently. She smiled shyly. "Morning, Mr. Puckett." Sawyer frowned. "Where's your shoes?" Junie shrugged. "Mama says she'll get me some when she can. I don't mind. I like the dirt." Sawyer felt his cheeks warm. He'd been fussing about scuffs while Junie didn't have any shoes at all. "You coming to church today?" Granddaddy asked. Junie shook her head. "Mama says I can't go without shoes." Sawyer looked down at his own feet. Suddenly, the squeaks didn't seem so embarrassing. Granddaddy placed a hand on Sawyer's shoulder. "Son, you still want them shiny shoes?" Sawyer swallowed. "No, sir." Granddaddy nodded. "Why not?" Sawyer looked at Junie, then at his shoes. "'Cause I already got what I need, and she don't." Granddaddy's eyes softened. "That's character, boy, and it shines brighter than any polish." Sawyer hesitated only a moment before slipping off his shoes and holding them out to Junie. "They ain't fancy," he said, "but they'll get you to church." Junie's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Sawyer." She put them on. They were a little big, but she stood taller anyway. Sawyer walked the rest of the way barefoot, the cool earth soft beneath his feet. Granddaddy walked beside him, slow and steady. "You know," Granddaddy said, "a good heart walks taller than any pair of shoes." Sawyer grinned. "Even barefoot?" Granddaddy chuckled. "Especially barefoot." When they reached the church steps, Sawyer felt a few curious glances at his bare feet. But then he saw Junie walking in beside her mama, smiling wide in his old shoes. Pastor Crawford paused mid-greeting when he saw Sawyer. "Son, you lose your shoes?" "No, sir," Sawyer said proudly. "I gave 'em away." Pastor Crawford's eyes warmed. "Well, now, that's the finest thing I've seen all week." Sawyer felt taller than he ever had, taller than any shiny shoes could have made him. So the reflection of this week's story is, worth isn't something we put on. It's something we live out. It shows in kindness, in generosity, in the quiet choices that reveal who we truly are. Shiny shoes may catch the eye, but a shining heart catches heaven's attention. And sometimes the greatest lessons come not from what we gain, but from what we're willing to give away. I hope you enjoyed that story this week. Come back next week for another one. May these stories that I have written wrap around you like a well-loved quilt. May they remind you that God is near, hope is steady, and joy often comes softly, like a whisper on a southern breeze.